Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. And as I was praying for you this week, I asked the Lord, what do you have for Tuesday, March 11th? Is it no, April 11th? I don't even know what day it is. That's what I'm coming in with. What do you have for today, Lord? And I felt like the Lord wanted me to remind all of us, myself included, of this simple truth that we already know. That we know the God of creation, the God who created the heavens and the earth, when everything was dark and formless and empty and void. The God whose spirit was hovering over the surface of the waters and who spoke the words and said, "Let there be light." And there was light. The God who created day and night. The God who separated waters, created an expanse called heaven in a day. We know that God. You know this. But think about it with me for a second, will you? Just settle in this truth that you already know. That we know the God who gathered the water and called it sea, who gathered the earth, the land, and called it earth, who allowed the earth to produce fruit and trees and vegetation, and then gave the earth the ability to reproduce through seeds. That one always gets me, the seeds. It's the thought for after. The God who separated day and night and light and darkness into seasons and years, who put the sun and the moon up there and then added stars. We know that God. We know him. It's amazing to sit and think about this God who put all of these things together, creatures in the sky and in the sea, and animals on the land, and then who created man in his own image, and then a woman so that the man wouldn't have to be alone, and then gave them the ability to reproduce and make more humans. I can't believe it. I mean, I sit in this truth, and we all know this, right? But that was 6 days, just a play-by-play of what God was doing for 6 days. And it makes me think, this is how my brain works, kind of weird, but what was God doing on day 200? Like, what did his day look like? Have you ever thought about that? What did God's day look like on 400 million? And what was he doing yesterday? Because the God of creation is still creating. The God who has all the power, who spoke the words and said, "Let there be light." That God is our God that is still in full and complete power. And I forget. I know this to be true, but I forget to allow the truth of it to absolutely transform me, you know? To overwhelm me because, and I want it so badly to transform me. I really do. I want to sit in this truth and to know it so well and to have it be such a part of me because the truth is what sets us free, right? And today I want to talk about freedom from anxiety. Anxiety is something that we absolutely are just overwhelmed by in our world. And I don't think we can avoid it, actually. I think it's going to come. I think it's going to be a part of all of us in our days. But the question is, are we going to let it reign and rule in our life? Anxiety's coming. You're going to face it, the stress, the overwhelm. But does it have control over you? And Jesus gives us a way out, and the way out is he points to the God of creation, the all-powerful, good, and creative one. And he says, are you going to have faith in the one who is not worried about a thing? Are you going to have faith in that God? Hear the words of Jesus. If you have your Bibles, let's read what he has to say in Matthew chapter 6. For this reason I say to you, do not be worried about your life. Verse 25. As to what you will eat or what you will drink, nor for your body as to what you will put on. Is life not more important than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather crops into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more important than they? And which of you by worrying can add a single day to his or her lifespan? Verse 28, and why are you worried about clothing? Notice how the lilies of the fields grow. They don't labor or spin thread for cloth, yet I say to you, not even Solomon in all his glory clothed himself like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow thrown into the furnace, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Don't worry then, saying, what are we to eat? What are we to drink? What are we to wear? For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided to you. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So good, right? I know you know this one too. It's not new. I love to imagine the way Jesus taught this. I picture him, he's teaching the Sermon on the Mount, fully relaxed. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. And Jesus' tone in this passage, it's incredible. Think about this with me. He is completely and fully confident in the Father, and yet he's not arrogant. He's compassionate. He's full of compassion and confidence, and he speaks these words. And they're different. Here's how I pick up on the tone of Jesus. You know the words of Paul in Philippians chapter 4, right? Who says essentially the same thing. He says, what? Do not worry, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with supplication, present your requests to God, and the peace of God will transcend all understanding. Do you know what I mean? You know this passage? Can you sense the difference between Paul and Jesus? Paul is like, don't be anxious, here's what you gotta do, and here's how you get the peace. 2 + 2 = 4, right? And Jesus, on the other hand, and Paul's not wrong, he's exactly right, but Jesus is God. And so Paul's pointing towards God, present your request to God, and Jesus is God who's sitting there like, will you just give it to me? What's that thing you're carrying around that feels so heavy? Let's talk through it. What are your objections for trusting me? I want to know. I'm just sitting here. Let's talk through it. What do you got? Are you worried about provision? Is that what it is? Are you worried about rent and the job and the money and what's coming next and if you're going to have enough to make it in Southern California? Verse 26. Look at the birds of the sky. God feeds them. Verse 28, look at the lilies, how beautifully they're clothed. And they're just lilies. They're beautiful. And the grass is alive for 1 second. And God takes care of the grass. Do you know how much more value you have than the birds and the lilies and the grass? Jesus is asking, do you know your value to me? He's also pointing to the faithful track record of God, right? If God cares for the grass and the birds and the lilies, surely he's going to care for you. So if it's provision, if it's all the things that you need that you're worried about, God's got that. He's faithful and you matter to him. But he goes on. If that doesn't get you, if you're still holding on, you're still feeling tense, jaw clenched, shoulders tight, how about the fact that, verse 27, you can't add a single hour to your life by worrying? How about that? Let's just use logic and reason. Maybe that makes sense to you. Maybe that's what you need to hear, that you're not in control anyway, but I know the one who is in control. The God of creation. And if that doesn't do it for you, he keeps going. It's like Jesus, one by one, is knocking the legs out of every excuse, every reason that we could have to just hold on really tight. He's like, I'm just gonna wipe it. Just sit down, breathe, relax. If it's this, but in the most compassionate and gentle and loving and kind way, that's how he's doing it. Not like, come on, dummy, let's go, figure it out. It's like, what is it? Tell me, I'm here. Is it this? The next thing he says, verse 32, the Gentiles worry about all these things. But who's Jesus talking to in the Sermon on the Mount? The Jews, God's people, right? This is Matthew chapter 6. They're his people already, and Jesus says the same thing to us. You're not the Gentiles. Do you forget who you are? That you are sons and daughters of the King who have already been given his robe and his ring, that you're royalty, that you have access to the power of the Holy Spirit, the peace of God that transcends all understanding, and the fullness of joy that's found in his presence, that you have eternal inheritance and riches and power. Do you know what's promised to you? And this is the one that gets me, because I'm like, gosh, I sit and look around at everything in the world around me and everyone and all their problems, and I get so caught up in all the things, and God's like, look up. Are you forgetting who you are? Are you forgetting what I gave you, the gifts I gave you? You're living on the same playing field as everybody else, and you were never meant to live there. You're meant to live up here. Look up, zoom out, pull back. And I get all excited, but Jesus is still chill. You know, I'm like worked up about it, but he's like, no, don't forget, you're not a Gentile. You're mine. Do you know your identity is in me? Is that what stops you from giving me control, from relaxing, from resting in who I am and the control and the power that I have, the God of creation? And if that still doesn't get, he goes on, and you guys get the picture? Jesus is going on. I've got all the time in the world. The last one is the kicker. I think this is the trump card. Here's what Jesus says. Your heavenly Father, in verse 32, knows you need all these things. I love this one. I love this argument of Jesus. Because here's what Jesus is saying. You know, in Psalm 139, I just love Psalm 139. David's praying to the Lord, and he says, Lord, you search me, you know when I sit down, when I rise up, you understand my thoughts from afar, you know the words on my tongue before I even speak them. You know this passage? He's going on and on. It's the same passage where he says, you knit me together in my mother's womb. So he goes on and on, establishing, God, you know me, you know me, you know me. You know everything about me. You know everything about what I do before I even do it. You know me so well. And then he gets to the end of Psalm 139. I was just reading it, like thinking about this for the first time. He gets to the end of Psalm 139 and he says, search my heart, O God. Know my thoughts. See if there be any anxious way in me and lead me in the path of life everlasting. And I was sitting there thinking, like, why would Jesus, or why would David establish, God, you know every single thing about me, and then get to the end of the passage and say, search me? I think David, what is happening is he's finally coming to the realization, God, you know me better than I know myself. So could you actually reveal to me what I need to know about myself? You know me so well. You know everything when I sit and when I stand, what I'm about to say before I even say it. So when he's praying, search my heart, tell me what I need to know about me. And that's what Jesus is doing in Matthew chapter 6 too. That's the same point Jesus is making. God knows what you need. God knows you better than you know yourself. He values you. He is faithful. He is in control anyway. You're not. You are his. Your identity is in him. And he knows you better. He is God, and you are not. And this is Jesus in the most relaxed and compassionate and kind way, just coaxing us. Just trust me. Could you put your faith in me? Could you put your faith in the one who isn't worried about anything, in the God of creation? I think it would be a total miss. This is probably not very Talbot Chapel-esque. But if we did not stop right now and make this personal. I know this is weird, but I just want you to close your eyes if you want to, or just stare at me, that's fine. But think about this for real. Just imagine you're sitting in front of Jesus. Sermon on the Mount is just for you. It's you and him right now. Just picture it. And he looks at you and he says, your name. What feels heavy? What feels heavy to you? I got time. I care. Is it the test? class, the grades, the semester, the relationship, the lack of relationship? Is it the job that's next? Is it the physical needs? Is it your health, your family, struggles with identity, sexuality, anger, social what feels heavy to you? Will you tell me? Will you tell me what it is? Can we talk through it together? Just like I have in this passage. And I want you to imagine Jesus looking at you in the eyes and saying, I got you. I got you. I want you to imagine looking you in the eyes and speaking the truths from Matthew 6 over you. What does he say? He says, you are valuable to me. I love you. He says, God is faithful. He's always been. He says, I know the one who's in control. He says, you are mine. He says, I am God. I know you. I know what you need. I'm God. And I want to ask you, Biola students, in this moment with the Lord, would you allow him a little faith? Would you just trust? Just hand over, just acknowledge what it is. Jesus is saying, will you trust me? Will you have faith in me? And whenever I think about Jesus asking us to have faith, because he's just asking you right now, will you trust me with this? Will you trust me with this? Whenever I think about a moment of Jesus asking us to have faith, I always think about the Mark chapter 9 dad. You know which guy I'm talking about? The one who goes up to Jesus and says, can you heal my son? God's like, can I heal your son? You know I can. Do you have faith? Do you believe that I can heal your son? And you know how he responds. He says, I believe, but help my unbelief. And I always focus on the part in this passage, the end, where he says, I have faith to believe, but help my unbelief. And I think, okay, God can take our tiny little belief, our tiny little faith, and that's enough. But this week, as I was thinking about that passage, you know what I realized? I realized that the Father went to Jesus in the first place. Have you ever thought about that? That the father of the son who was sick had to go to Jesus to ask for help. And that's faith too. It's hard to ask for help in our problems, you know? And so even just you being able to speak, this is what I am carrying to the Lord, is a little bit of faith. Do you get what I'm saying? Even you being able to bring it to him is enough, because it was enough in Mark chapter 9 for the dad with the sick son. Can you bring just a little bit to me? Can you just show me what it is? Jesus says, he invites you this morning. He invites me. Can you just show me what it is? Can you trust me with it? And here's what I do. I give it to him. And then I'm sitting there with Jesus and I say, okay, now I'm going to take it back. Because I don't want to leave it there and I don't know how. But Jesus is so kind and so compassionate and so loving that he doesn't end us. He doesn't leave us there. The passage continues. There's actually 2 more verses. Here's what he says next, verse 33 of Matthew chapter 6. Here's where we go. After encountering Jesus and saying, here's what we got, Lord. He says this, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. And in a room like this at Biola, man, it is so good to be here, like among fellow believers and just excited about the Lord. I know we want the kingdom. Like, I know we're desperate for it. I'm desperate for it. Seek first the kingdom. But the question is, do we want it first? We want it, but do we want it first? This week, I was absolutely wiped out flat on my back. Like the sickest I've been in, like I can't even remember how long. Like the last 7 days, like deadly ill on my back. I have 3 kids under the age of 4. It was a little chaotic. My husband was sick too. I felt like I was on a reality TV show, like someone at some point was gonna step in and be like, okay, now you made it, you're gonna get, go rest now. And it, like that never came. It was just more of like testing my body to the max limit. But this was my week, okay? And I'm praying, Lord, this is just this week, okay? I'm praying, Lord, would you heal me, heal my body because I wanna take care of my kids well. I wanna love my husband well. I wanna prep for Easter at our church and be a part of that. And like the biggest holiday I'm on staff at our church. I wanna prep for Biola and just write an amazing, encouraging message for these students because I remember what it feels like. And I'm sick as a dog and I can't do a thing. Lord, heal me so I can do all those things. And man, I gotta ask the question, is what I was seeking the kingdom first or my health first? Because I wanted so badly to be healed so that I could, right? It's so subtle, you guys. And the Lord reminds me again and again and again, let me show you how to seek first my face, my kingdom in the midst of your pain and your health and your unanswered prayers, the question, the thing that you're waiting for the Lord to do so that you can. Let me show you how to seek me first in the middle of that. Let me show you what it looks like, because then in that posture, you are fully dependent on me. And everything you have to give is gonna be from me. Everything I'm giving to you today is from him because I don't have anything to give because I've been sick flat on my back all week long. That's the place he wants us to be. That's the place he always wanted us to be, where he is our everything and our all and our greatest treasure and our heart's desire, right? Because then what we're even asking for is what he's led us to ask for. Think about John 15, abide in me and my word abides in you. And then you ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. Because he's changing and transforming us so that our will and our desire, our longing, our greatest longing is for the things that he put in our heart, the things of him. And here's why this works. Seek first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added to you. Here's why it works. Because when we seek him first, when he is our greatest treasure, our greatest desire, and all we need is him, then everything we need is found in him, and we have everything we need because everything we need is in him. Do you get it? Like, it's just, he is all of it. And we think that the cure for anxiety is peace. This is what I mean. We think that the cure for anxiety is peace. But really, what we need so desperately is to be reconciled with the God from whom peace flows. And then we have him. And in him, we have everything we need. It's not about getting the peace. It's about getting him. And then we get all of it. We get the mercy, we get the peace, we get the love, we get the compassion, we get the justice. In him, if he is our greatest desire, our treasure, our only one. There's a translation of Matthew 6:33 that says, seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these less important things will be given to you abundantly. And that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what happens. They become less important. All those things that we worked through in all the 10 verses that Jesus helped us walk through, when we seek first the kingdom, when we seek his face, we have everything we need. We are so set.
Discover who you're called to be at Biola University, a leading Christ-centered university in Los Angeles, with programs on campus and online. Subscribe for more of our videos and learn more at biola.edu.